Hey everyone, welcome back to Female Founder World. I'm Jasmine. I am the host of the show. And today I'm chatting with Lindsey, the founder of FYPM. I think I first found them on maybe like LinkedIn or Instagram. She's built basically a platform that's like Glassdoor for creators. And I just think it's such an interesting business idea. The creator space is super interesting. We talk about how she kind of built this product and her experience with entrepreneurship in general, but also what brands need to know about working with creators. FYPM just released this list of the top rated and worst rated brands to work with according to influencers and creators. And there are just a few watch outs about how to kind of make sure you are near the top of the list if you're a brand working with those kind of folks. So I feel like that's really helpful. She also launched the business with a story on the front page of the business section of the New York Times. And we talk about how she managed to pull that off. So even if you are building a consumer business, like I know most of the people listening are, there's still a lot that you can learn from Lindsey. And then we kind of have a bit of a rant about the fact that influencers are this space is just so disrespected and like quite degraded, and how there's been this massive shift and rebrand in the last couple of years. And now it's the creator economy, and now a lot of men are involved, and now it's something to be respected. And it's a really big, exciting opportunity and space. And I just think you have to laugh, otherwise you would cry. So we talk about that a little bit as well. It's a really good chat. If you want to learn more about Lindsey and what she's building, I have put some links in the show notes. There's a space for brands to kind of get involved with the platform. You can benchmark your rates and you can learn more about best practices on how to work with influencers, and just like generally her point of view, her branding, the way that they're going about building this business, I think is just really smart and really interesting. So definitely check them out. Okay, let's get into the show.
You are now entering Female Founder World with your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy.
Lindsey, welcome to Female Founder World. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I want to understand, I've been following what you guys are doing at FYPM for a little while, and I just think it's such an interesting business idea. But for people who don't know what you're building, are totally unfamiliar, give us like the elevator pitch. What are you guys creating?
Yeah, so FYPM is essentially a Glassdoor for influencers and content creators, similar to how if you're considering getting a new job, how do you decide if you want to work there or not, and how much compensation you should ask for. So we're really like purpose built to fit the needs of this community, because brand deals come in all shapes and sizes, and your compensation depends on all sorts of things. It's like, what do they want you to do? Is it like a one-off post? Do they want you to create a video, which takes like hours to produce, or do they want you to post a story real quick? Like, how many followers do you have? Like that's generally not the most important thing, but it does matter a little bit. And like, what are the terms of the deal? Like, are you selling them the content? Are you letting them use it for a period of time, et cetera, et cetera? So basically, like FYPM right now, it's just for content creators and their managers, and they can join, look up different brands, read other people's experiences. It's all anonymous, by the way, inside. And just basically, we're providing a tool that helps them get the information they need to make better partnership decisions for themselves.
It's such a cool business idea. When I read about what you were doing, I was just like, oh my God, of course this needs to exist. It just makes so much sense. I want to understand how you came to this idea. I was doing a bit of research. It sounds like you were in a really just like a shitty phase of life for a little while, and that's kind of what this incredible idea was born out of, and you managed to like pull it together yourself. Talk us through where you were and how this idea came to you.
Yeah, so I've actually had this idea for like over 10 years. I used to do freelance modeling. In 2015, I actually won an Instagram contest. It was called #CastMeMark, and I was one of 11 people chosen from Instagram out of like over 750,000 people who entered to be the face of Mark by Marc Jacobs. And
Wow.
I was in an international ad campaign. I was on like billboards in Singapore. I was on a bus in New York. I was in like a bunch of magazines and I was everywhere. And for all that, I got paid $1,000, which, yeah, your eyes, it sounds crazy now, but at the time, like that was, well, yeah, actually at the time and to this day, that's my highest paid gig ever. And on paper, I
Mm.
looked very successful. Like I did New York Fashion Week. I was sold as wall art in Urban Outfitters. I was in Italian Vogue, like Vera Wang's website, like all this stuff. And I never got paid for any of it. So I've always wanted this site to exist for that reason. And then, so I guess long story short, like there's no money in freelance modeling. So I got a master's in finance, get a real job situation. And I started working on the buy side at a $25 billion investment fund. So I learned a lot about the markets, the economy. I like how to value businesses. On the opposite end of the scale, I met with a bunch of Fortune 500 CEOs, got to ask them questions, basically like helps the fund decide, are we going to invest in this company or not? And then in the middle of all that, I started my online alter ego, Miss Young Professional, which is mostly a comedy about sexism in the workplace. And I started posting memes and all that and like pictures of myself. Like essentially I would like use nice pictures of myself as bait. And then like in the captions, it's like not about the outfit. It's like a humorous take on like all the messed up things women have to deal with in the workplace. Like I take like bad
Love
career,
that.
yeah, like bad career advice they give to women and I make it worse or do like role reversal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to hire men because I'm afraid I might sexually harass them. Poor me, like a stuff like that. And I started gaining a following. And then with that, I started having brands reaching out to me. And it was the same thing. They still didn't want to pay me. So I was like, well,
Uh-huh.
this sucks. Like it just never ends. But so anyway, I ended up leaving that job and getting a job on the marketing team at Poopery. So I did their social media for a while, and that was a really fun experience. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost my job, and then over the
Mm.
next 6 months, I lost my house and my boyfriend and all my money. So I had to move back in with my
Oh
parents.
my God.
Yeah, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm going to build this website that I've always wanted to exist." And I'm going to call it Fuck You Pay Me because people will know exactly who it's for and who it's not for. And
Yep.
yeah, and like during that time, my co founder now was working on another project, but she kind of helped me figure out how to build the first MVP using no code tools. So yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, like, you're not a technical founder, so like, what did your first product actually look like, and how are you kind of like scraping all this together? I'm so curious, and like, a lot of the people who are listening to this show are people building consumer brands. It's kind of a little bit of a different space, and we're going to get to your tips about brands and working with influencers in a second. But
Mhm.
this is just so interesting to me. Like, how do you put something like this out into the world when you're not a developer and you don't have any money at that time? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have any money either. That's a good point. Um, so I basically what I did is I created a type form survey to mimic the create a profile and add a review form that we use on FYPM. And I hooked it up to Airtable to create like a database of all of our users and information. And I created a landing page using Webflow. And Rachel, my co founder, mocked me up some basic designs in Figma. Or no, this was not Figma. This was a different program. This was like Wireframe or something. And I sent it around to my immediate like network of influencer friends, like mostly other workwear bloggers and meme pages. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about building this website. Really curious what you think. Like, would you use it? Blah, blah, blah. And like, basically everyone was like, oh my God, finally. Thank you. Please do it. Like,
Yeah.
and so I was like, okay. So I sent them the landing page to sign up and fill out the forms. And through that, I was able to build up a wait list, I think about like 200 people with like some data before I made my first blog post. And the blog post was like, it was just, I made it, I'm so extra. I had like a whole photo shoot, of me in like a pink suit from Theory. And I was basically like, the blog was titled, I'm starting a business. It's called Fuck You Pay Me. And it was like, it's still up on my website. It was like the mantra, the mission that got everyone to sign up. And through that, I was able to get a much larger wait list, a much larger, I guess it doesn't seem that large now, but for not having a website, it's pretty large. I was able to get 100 reviews on the website by the time we launched our first MVP, which was this like pink thing. Like it was great. It did what it was supposed to do, but it is nothing like what we're doing now and what's in store for 2023. So
and I mean, that's entirely the point of an MVP, right? Is like get it out into the world, get the feedback, and then create the actual thing. And I feel like 100 reviews is a great start when you're like bootstrapping and just in that kind of proof of concept stage. I want to talk about the fact that you have such a clear point of view, because I feel like so many businesses like are missing that. Like you have such a clear stance, point of view. People who come to your Instagram account, go to your website, like know exactly what you're about. And your stance is very much like being a creator is a job. They deserve to be paid fairly and compensated fairly and treated fairly like anyone else in the workforce. And it's wild to me that this is like an unusual point of view. Like I feel like there's still this kind of, when I scroll through the comments section on stories about influencers and creators, people are so nasty. And like, I don't know if it's like a jealousy thing or what's going on, but there's so much disrespect around that line of work. Why?
Sexism, plain and simple.
Yes, it is 100%, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it has a lot to do with sexism. I mean, like our entire economy is run off women's unpaid labor, and that's a fact. And just with the internet, it's just every inequity. Just I could go off on a whole tangent on this. Like even think about like what happened last year, or I guess starting 2 years ago, where like the word influencer was rebranded as creator, And with that, more men were like, I'm a creator. And now all of a sudden it's getting more respect. Like people associate influencers.
Now it's the creator economy.
Yeah.
And it's worth investing in. And it's like the next big thing. And it's like women have been like running social media and the internet since it began. Like we have been the ones creating this content. We've been the ones reviewing brands. We've been the ones like giving each other advice through social media. And like now it's the creator economy and it's actually respected because men are involved.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's wild, but I'm like so unsurprising. The same thing happened with software engineering. That started off as like menial women's work. It's like entering data, being very organized, very precise. And then all of a sudden, like men were like, oh, like this is like kind of difficult. And then they took over and now it's like, now it's high, like very highly paid and all this stuff. It's nonsense. It's definitely some nonsense right there.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and it's so true. Like I hadn't thought about that rebrand between like influencer to creator and this like creator economy shift, and how that kind of shifted as men started getting involved in the space. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk me through. You guys just released a report which was the top brands and the lowest rated brands on the platform. And it is so pervy. I was like scrolling through, really interested, really surprising, like who's on there at the top and who's on there at the bottom. And I'll put the link in the show notes if people want to go and read that. They totally should. What are some of the things, let's say someone is out there, they're building a consumer brand, they want to work with influencers, they want to work with creators, and they want to do it really well. What are the things that make a brand stand out and make somebody want to work with them and get them a good reputation?
Well, the best way is to think about what you want, like if you like before you started your own business, before you started your own brand, what made you want to work for someone else or with someone else? It's a lot of the same things. It's like, you know, do they communicate well? Are they professional? Do they treat you with respect? Do they respect your work and your craft? Do they, communicate expectations and deadlines clearly? Are they available for feedback? Like like it's a two-way thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly it. But with respect to like the best brands list, they all have these things in common and then some. Like, there's opportunities for growth, like you can grow with the brand, like, and have the opportunity to make more money or, change your role a little bit, like as a partner. Like they really view, like they approach influencer marketing with like a partnership perspective. Whereas all the worst brands are pretty focused on getting creative assets for as cheap as possible, and then they do all these
Mm.
little sneaky things like sneak in like perpetual usage rights into the contract, or like they'll sign a deal or make a deal with the creator and then they will decide after the content is delivered that they don't like it and they don't want to pay, and it's like, what the hell? It's like showing up to work and then like your boss, one week is like, I don't like what you did this week, so I'm not going to pay you, That only happens in this industry. like, like, or
Yeah.
maybe not just this one. Like I'm referring to like, it happens a lot in this industry, for sure. Yeah.
And with like creative freelancers in general, I think there's like a thing around if you're in the creative space, for some reason your work is, I don't know, up for debate. Okay, that's super interesting. What are some of the brands that are on the list at the top? Like who's meant to be great to work with?
Well, Adobe's number one. They are
Amazing.
awesome. It was Adobe, Amazon. I can't remember the exact order. Hero Cosmetics was on there. I know she's been in this
Oh, we've
podcast.
had Ju on the show. Yeah, we love her. Yep.
Yeah, they do a great job. There was Farah Pet Organics, Empress 1908 Gin, Samsung, Bob's Red Mill. Who am I missing? I'm looking at my. Okay, I think that's it.
And
That's
we'll put the
10.
whole link in the show notes. But I was
Michaels.
just curious, like, oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's super interesting. Yeah, because it's just like it seems like there's not like a through line necessarily between like the kind of brand maybe you would think would be on there and the kind of brand you wouldn't think would be on there.
Mhm.
So that's super interesting. And we were talking before the show and you were like, oh, I was kind of going through your guest list to see how the women-owned consumer brands that you've spoken with have performed. And it sounds like they perform pretty well compared to a lot of the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a really interesting data point, I think.
Yeah, me too. We're gonna have more on that later this year. We're working with a data scientist right now who's helping us. Well, first he's helping us develop like the proprietary model that's going to power our Rate My Offer tool that we're going to release in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also been gathering like a lot of really interesting insights on how things like gender, race, sexual orientation will like impact pay, like the pay gap in this industry. It's a thing, especially between gender, especially with gender. So
you're gonna get so much great press from that. I just feel like that those data insights must be generating like really good press for you guys.
yeah. Well, hopefully. I hope people care, because they should.
I mean, I feel like now they do. I feel like nothing's hotter than talking about the creator economy at the moment. So I think that you guys will definitely get a lot of pickup on that. For brands who want to get involved and want to check out the platform, how do brands get involved and how do creators get involved?
Right. So creators can just sign up to join at fypm.vip. And brands and other, marketing businesses can sign up to like for early access for our FYPM for business product, which we plan on launching in a few months. And we are still in the process of creating that and building that. So we're still very much in the process of meeting with different brands, asking them questions about their like their influencer marketing strategy and their needs, their pain
Mm-hmm.
points and all that. Just trying to, like, we want to make a product that is useful for brands, something that helps give them some visibility into their own practices, like where they can, like what their strengths are, where they can improve, and also like if they sign up, they'll be able to like manage their brand page and post like, business updates, brand updates, communication, like contact me here, or like links to like open job postings. And then also we're creating like a benchmarking tool as well. That's going to be built upon the same model for the influencer side that where brands can like input like like their offer or how much they pay and see if they are paying influencers below average, on par, or like above average, and kind of like stuff
Super
like that.
smart.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
this is obviously going to be like this is going to be a paid product, right?
Yes. Yes. But
So that's kind of, is that the idea about how you monetize the platform? It's like on the brand side, it's monetized.
yeah, we're gonna try that first. So because like I would like to keep it free for the creator, for as long as possible. So we're just gonna see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll do something else. We got lots of tricks up our sleeve.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah.
I bet you've got lots of ideas. And you mentioned benchmarking before. And this is obviously like, I mean, probably an annoying question because it's something that it just changes wildly depending on the scope of a project. But like, what are the rates at the moment? Let's say somebody is creating UGC content, they don't have a following, so we'll take that
Mhm.
out of the equation.
Mhm.
What kind of things impact how much somebody should be paid, and like what are people paying for, like reels or TikTok content versus still imagery now? What's
Yeah,
what's fair?
yeah. So it comes down to a couple things. One, if it's not just pure UGC, it has a lot to do with who you are, your brand power within your niche. So like it's not just about like I think people normally can use like they use follower count as like a proxy for your power within your niche, but if you're like super niche, there's a cap on how many followers you'll get, just because only so many
Yep.
people will be interested in what you're doing if you blog about sand or something, like whatever you're doing. That was a random one. My undergrad is in geology, so I used to be a geologist. So
Okay.
I have the weirdest
It feels
resume
a little
ever.
less random now.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I wrote like my master's thesis. I have 2 degrees in geology. I wrote my master's thesis. It's like a 250-page long academic paper on sand off the coast of New Jersey. It'll put you to sleep if you're looking
Oh
for
my
a
God,
new
okay.
sleeping pill. Okay.
Okay.
But so it depends on like who you are in your niche, and it depends on like who's asking, like whose brand is it benefiting more? The influencer's brand or the brand? Like, is it a startup? They have like no brand, so they have like no power. Is it a
Mm-hmm.
big, big ass brand? Sorry, can I say that? Is it a big ass brand with a
Yeah.
lot of power that could like help your career somehow? They'll probably be willing to like take a little bit less for that, and that's fine because it can help your career and lead to other opportunities. And like you can always say no. So it's like it depends a lot on that. It depends on like what they're asking for. Like the way I like to think about it is high effort and low effort deliverables, like a video. Oh my God. I have like spent 2 days making like a 30-second video, and it drives me crazy. But like is it a video, or like a post with like a photo shoot and makeup and you got it, like it's a whole is it a whole production to produce the content, or is it like a quick story like an unboxing?
Uh-huh.
Is it like what are the terms involved? That's like the biggest one, probably. Like, are you trying to purchase the content outright, like perpetual usage rights and ownership, or do you just want to do you want to whitelist it, like run it as ads on, like put ad spend behind it and do it yourself? Are you asking for exclusivity so like they can't work with any of your competitors? Like that, those are the things that go up and down. And a lot of these influencers are waking up to how they should think about like pricing themselves, because at least when I worked brand side, like we worked with an influencer marketing company, and like I remember like my manager like clicking this button, like, and it was like, I only want to work with influencers for a free product. It just filtered out all the paid stuff. And it's like the tech before for micro influencers was like built upon exploiting this knowledge gap that the inexperienced
Mm-hmm.
people don't have. So and for like a few years it helped to like shave down like influencer rates. And so I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is why I can't get paid, And then I was like, it just feels really good to bring it back up.
Yeah, and as this like industry, the influencer and creator industry like matures and becomes more professional, I feel like more tools like this. There's also another really interesting business called Creators Legal, which is basically like legal
Oh,
Zoom for creators, and they help people basically figure out these contracts, and they help brands work with creators and create their contracts. And it's just interesting to me watching this space mature over the last couple of years, and I just think we're going to see a lot more tools and products like this. I'm interested to see what else happens in the space, because there's been a lot of focus right now on those platforms that you spoke about, like matching, brand matching, creators, and like we've got enough of those. There's a million of them, but there's now all of these other kind of ways that, as this industry becomes really professionalized and mature, all of these other opportunities to kind of bring services like what you're doing to the space, which is really interesting.
thank you.
How are you funding the business? I know you raised a bit of money in 2021, and it sounds like you haven't needed a whole lot of cash, which is awesome, and looks like you're about to start monetizing through this paid product as well. What was
Yeah.
the fundraising process like for you? What did you raise? How have you been using it?
Fundraising was insane. I guess how it happened is we got lucky and we got an article in the New York Times on the front page of the business section, and it was, I have it right
That's
here.
not luck. That's just you have a great idea. Like, that's not
Well,
luck.
thank
That's
you.
just the fact that you're working
Well,
on something smart.
the timing was lucky because we were about to be at zero, but here it is.
Oh, amazing.
In your face app, or wait, the title.
Wow.
Yeah, so there I am, front page, New York Times business section. That was exciting, and it's so we had that, and it was kind of like our debut into society. What's that called? I should know. A debutante. It was our debutante
Mm-hmm.
ball. I'm from Texas, so those things happen all the time there. But that was like our debut, and like like everybody went crazy. It was like all of a sudden everybody and their mother wanted to talk to me, and we got a lot more press. We got a lot of users signing up at the same time, and we started fundraising at the same time. So we got a lot. It was just a lot all at once. So we were able to close that fundraising round in like a month and a half. And I guess like the most useful thing for other people thinking about raising a pre-seed round is like, I guess what we learned. So we had a very strategic, I guess not a strategic method, but we wanted a mix of angel investors and funds. And our goal was to raise $1 million pre-seed round, which is essentially idea stage,
Mm-hmm.
because like we had this MVP, but we weren't really tracking anything. So we didn't really know much about our usage and all that. Like not much other than like total number of signups, total users, total reviews, all that stuff. So we decided to raise a one, and like we just had a lot more validating to do, I guess is what I'm saying, on the product. Like to find, we didn't quite have product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
our goal was to raise a $1 million pre-seed, and we wanted to fill it with a mix of strategic angel investors and funds, because like the idea is like angels would provide some more like strategic advice or expertise, or like it's great to be able to call the angels we have and ask for it, be like, I'm dealing with this, what do I do? Because they've like many of them are like founders themselves, and they've been through it. Like this is hard, building a business is hard, every part of this is hard. So yeah, that's the other thing. Don't build a business if you think it's going to make your life easier, because it's not, for like, I don't know, like
Facts.
10, yeah, like a decade or something. But it's really fun. I love what I do, so I have fun doing it. But anyway, we started off taking like we filled up like half our round with like a mix of angels, with like a bunch of angels and like two funds. And then by the time we got to the second half, it was like most funds who invest in that stage didn't want, like they wanted more of the company because our cap was like 10 million. Also, this was 2021 when valuations were crazy. They're not this crazy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe anyone listening out there won't have this issue, but they like most of the funds like we contacted for pre-seed were targeting like 10% ownership of the business, and we just didn't have that available at the end. But we did end up filling around and actually oversubscribing and raising our valuation a little bit. So we ended up raising a total of 1.35 million in about a month and a half. And it was
Amazing.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. How did the New York Times story come about? That's a dream. Did you pitch it yourself? Did you work with a publicist? Did they find you?
So when I started FYPM and I was trying to figure out how to build the thing, raise money, and, make a useful product, I started following like more closely like a bunch of the reporters in this field just to stay like ahead of the curve, like current events, stay relevant, which is what you should do if you don't really have any users to talk to yet or customers to talk to yet. And I basically like I knew like I wanted to talk to Taylor Lorenz at some point. And I read all of her articles when she would tweet something and I had something to say about it, not like spammy, like just responding some authentic, like
Insight.
yeah. And then every time she would be like I'm writing a story about this. Is there someone out there who can give me a comment? I would, that's how I kind of introduced myself. I was like, hi, I'm Lindsey. I'm building this website. Like I do this, this, and this. Like this is what I've seen, like here's my number if you want to talk. And then eventually like
and for people who don't know Taylor, she's it's like an internet culture editor at the New York Times. Or is she at the New York Times now or the Washington Post?
She's at the Washington Post now. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got introduced to her. Eventually she noticed me and I got her on the phone, and then she was like, it was about something else, and then she was like looking at me and like the room I was in. I was in my sister's childhood bedroom at my parents' house, and she was like, I want to write a story about you, and I was like, okay. So it was awesome. But I did try to develop that relationship, online. And
yeah, and that just goes to show as well how much of like press is just relationship building. Like these are people who gatekeep huge audiences, and if you can kind of like build a relationship with one or two people who have that huge influence, it really does matter and it can really pay off. And the last thing I want to ask you, Lindsey, is just for a resource. So sometimes people will give us a book, a podcast, a habit that they have, just something that's been helping you as you've been building FYPM and that you think other people should kind of check out.
Yeah, absolutely. So along that line of, following all the reporters on Twitter that are relevant to your space, to stay relevant, every single morning for the past like 5 years, while I make my coffee and my breakfast, I listen to NPR podcast called Marketplace. You can find it, I think, anywhere you can find a podcast, but it's basically, it comes out the night before, or the evening before after like the markets close. And they just do a great job of summarizing that day's like economic and financial news. Like I obviously I used to work in like investment management. So when I left that job, I lost access to like Bloomberg Terminal and FactSet and all the other tools I would use to, get like the information. And that's like it has kept me like in the right direction. Just like, and it really helps to make sure my strategy and what we're doing is going in the same direction as the rest of the world, So I try not to fight things.
That's a great recommendation.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that. Here, I can show you like
amazing
a picture of it if you want.
And it's called Marketplace by NPR.
Yes. Okay. This one.
Okay, awesome. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to add that to my
And
lineup. Amazing.
yeah, and like the past 5 years since I started listening to it, I've probably not listened to like a total of like 3 months of it. Like I've missed like 3 months worth of days of this podcast. It's so helpful.
Okay, that's so good to know. Lindsey, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on the Female Founder World podcast. I love what you're building. I think the mission is really cool. I think the way that you're going about framing it and building it and the brand piece of what you're doing is really cool as well. And it's just been amazing to hear your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, and if you're a brand and you're interested in early access or and giving us feedback on our FYPM for business product, you can sign up to receive updates and invitations to all that fun stuff at fypm.vip/brands. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to definitely have that in the show notes so people can check it out. Thanks, Lindsey.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into that episode of Female Founder World. I hope you loved it. I hope you loved chatting with Lindsey. We are dropping episodes every week on Mondays. I hope that you guys are enjoying the cadence of the show. If there's anyone that you want to hear from, send me a DM. I'm on Instagram at JasmineGarnsWithE, and we are at Female Founder World as well. I'd love your recommendations of different founders that you think would be cool to chat with and that you guys want to learn from. All right, have a good one. I'll chat with you in the next episode.